Okay, so we've never done this one before. We're going to do a James Harden trade machine today, but we're going to do it in two different parts. I sent out a tweet the other day asking for some James Harden trade machine suggestions, but some outside of the box stuff, not just the same Sixers, Nets things that we've seen. Try and find a mystery team, try and be a little bit more creative, and you guys delivered. There are almost 15 trade machine worthy trades that you guys sent to me over on Twitter or in Discord, and we're going to go through them all today. But we're going to do it in two different parts. Part one right now, we've got 7 trades. Part two later on today, we've got 6 trades, all of which send James Harden to different teams. So be on the lookout for the second video of the day, and I hope you enjoy the first one here today. But with all those things said, welcome everybody. My name is Tucker. If you enjoy videos like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every day, and it's a great place for consistent NBA content. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well. Helps me out a ton, lets me know that you're enjoying the content, and helps that get out to more people on YouTube as well. You can also hang out with me at various socials at the bottom of the screen and in a link tree down in the description below. But with those things said, let's just go ahead and get into the trades. And we're not warming up. We're just going straight into the craziness. This one is from Jason, in which James Harden goes to Milwaukee. The Rockets receive Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, Buddy Hield, and picks, 2 firsts, 2 seconds. The Kings get PJ Tucker, Daniel House, Malik Monk, DJ Wilson, and Dante DiVincenzo. And the Hornets get Eric Gordon. So for Milwaukee, we don't need to spend much time talking about them here, right? They're going after James Harden. They're trying to retain Giannis Antetokounmpo in free agency in any way that they can. And the only way they're going to be able to attain James Harden, or get James Harden, would be to trade either Chris Middleton or Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday isn't eligible to be traded right now, so it has to be Middleton. So they're sending out Lopez, Middleton, a second, DJ Wilson, and Dante DiVincenzo to get back James Harden. In my opinion, it's a pretty good deal for them. That's pretty good value. Even though they're giving up 2 really good starters in Middleton and Lopez, you're getting James Harden, which is a huge, huge plus for them. You slide Giannis to the 5 a little bit more often, and that probably works. For the Rockets, you're getting Lopez, Middleton, Hield, 2 seconds, and a lottery protected pick, as well as a top 8 protected pick from Sacramento and from Charlotte. This is kind of under the impression that the Rockets want to continue to be good right now. You go with the John Wall, Chris Middleton, Christian Wood, DeMarcus Cousins core there in Houston, and you're getting those future picks as well from teams that generally aren't that good in Sacramento and Charlotte, so you have a chance of those being higher picks than if it was like Milwaukee or something like that. And you're also getting Buddy Hield, which would be a huge addition to the rotation here as well. So suddenly Houston is looking at a playoff caliber roster in the West, maybe one that doesn't point them towards a huge, huge future, with Hield being the quote-unquote young asset involved here. But regardless, it's an interesting trade package, certainly an outside of the box one. For the Kings, they're getting PJ Tucker, Daniel House, Malik Monk, DJ Wilson, Dante DiVincenzo in exchange for Hield and a future first-round pick. So obviously you're trying to get some players that are a little bit younger here. Not that Hield is old, but he doesn't quite fit the timeline of guys like De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley. So DiVincenzo is a nice player to add. You know they're interested in him because they wanted him in the Bogdanovich trade. You also get some adults in the room and someone like PJ Tucker. And then everybody else maybe develops for this Kings team moving forward. I don't hate this deal for them, honestly. I don't think Hield works. They get out from that salary, and they do have to give up a future first, which is a little bit scary, but I don't hate this for them at all. And then for Charlotte, you're getting Eric Gordon in exchange for a 2025 first-round pick, which helps you push towards the playoffs this year. My issues here are Charlotte already has like plenty of young guards. I'm not sure they want to bring in Eric Gordon to stand in front of LaMelo Ball, Devontae Graham, and Terry Rozier, even though they would like to make the postseason this year. I'm not sure they're giving up a future pick to go out and get Eric Gordon. I understand why he needed to be sent somewhere because of the salary stuff, but that would be my first issue here. And I highly, highly doubt that Houston would be going after a trade package of this variety. I know we kind of have to figure out something for Milwaukee, but they're probably going to prioritize young players and future assets a little bit more, and that would be my issue here for Houston. The other teams, I'm cool with it, and maybe Houston, if they were looking for a win-now trade, this would be near the top of the list, but still a very interesting one here from Jason, and I really appreciate you sending it in. Okay, next up, Tim has a trade that sends James Harden to the Atlanta Hawks. He says, go big or go home. The Rockets get 4 players to build a young core with plus 3 picks and 2 swaps. Hawks get Harden, have a starting 5 of Trey, Harden, Bogdanovich, Gallo, and Capella. So he pretty much spelled it out for us right there. Harden goes to Atlanta to build a really, really good starting lineup that's a guaranteed playoff team there in Atlanta. It's a team that still isn't going to be able to guard very well, but you're cashing in on those younger assets to make a playoff push, to keep Trae Young happy, and something tells me James Harden might be pretty happy in Atlanta as well over the next couple years. I'm just saying. For Houston, they're getting John Collins, Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, 3 picks, and then he also mentioned 2 pick swaps as well. If you're looking for a young talent core of players for Houston to potentially target, Atlanta is certainly a place to take a look at. DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish can both become really, really good wings down the road. Kevin Huerter can become a nice backcourt player. And then John Collins, despite needing a new contract soon, is still definitely an asset and could potentially work as like the young player cornerstone that Houston reportedly wants in exchange for a Harden trade and all those future picks. Now, the problem here for Houston is that Collins happens to play the same position that Christian Wood does, who they just brought in free agency. And having to pay both of those guys a lot of money seems a little bit questionable, building, so much around the front court for Atlanta. Obviously, you would love to have James Harden. You could argue that this is too much for them to give up, especially considering you don't know what Harden's future is for that, 2025 first round pick. You just don't know. It's Atlanta. You're not guaranteed success here. And giving up that many future picks and assets would make me a bit nervous, but I think Houston would take a look at this. I think they would listen to this. If Collins was a player of a different position, if he was a two guard, I think Houston would probably accept this right now. But the problem is that he plays similar positions to guys they've already invested in, like Christian Wood, and maybe that would cause them some issues here. So that's my only thought there. Next up now is a trade sent in from the Layup Line. He says that the Rockets will receive Wiggins, Pascal, James Wiseman, the 2025 first-round pick via Golden State, and the 2021 first-round pick via Minnesota that is top 3 protected, while the Warriors get PJ Tucker and James Harden. And he says that the only reason this trade doesn't go through is because of James Wiseman just signing his rookie deal. They could make that work at some point. So for Golden State, this wasn't all that much of a possibility in my mind before Klay Thompson got hurt. I didn't see the point of them trading for James Harden when they already had Steph and Klay. But without Klay Thompson now, this would be a situation that would be attractive to James Harden as a championship contender, while also being a team, Golden State, that is motivated to bring in someone like Harden and potentially has the assets to do so, depending on how highly you value Wiseman, that Minnesota pick, and then whatever future potential Andrew Wiggins may still have, in addition to Pascal at a nice rookie season. They're getting Harden in addition to PJ Tucker, which is really critical here. It gives them some more wing depth, which is something they're going to be lacking, especially if they're giving up someone like Wiggins. I think that Golden State would think about this. I think that they would consider it, bringing in someone like James Harden to this group, because they're not wasting time. They're not sitting around waiting, on Klay to come back. They've made the Oubre deal to try and get better right now, and this is a deal that certainly helps them get better right now. For the Rockets, in terms of like top tier assets, they're getting two of the better assets that can be offered in exchange for James Harden right now, and James Wiseman and that Minnesota pick next year, in addition to that future Warriors pick as well. So if those are two assets that they really, really value, I could see them considering this trade package, and then depending on what Wiggins can be down the road. At the end of the day, they're probably asking for another first round pick, or they're trying to reroute Wiggins somewhere else to get them better young assets. But the Warriors are coming in with some heavy hitters here. They definitely have some options, and this is another interesting trade, and I thank you for sending it in. Next up now is a trade from Luke, and he says that the Sixers would be giving up Tobias Harris, Tony Bradley, Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey, 1, 2, 3 first-round picks, and 3 seconds in exchange for James Harden and Ben McLemore. So this is one that I push for people to come up with. Come up with a Sixers trade in which they don't give up Ben Simmons, and see if we can make this work and get James Harden and Philly to play with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And this would be one of those scenarios, right? Harris, despite the huge contract, is still a younger-ish player that has some potential moving forward. He's a real NBA player in a different situation where he's not relied on so much to just be an off-ball shooter like he was at times in Philly. He's a really good player. He showed that in LA before he was traded to Philadelphia. You're getting the young players in Thybulle, which a lot of people really like, and Tyrese Maxey, who is another player that a lot of people like, and you get those future assets and those first and those second-round picks. Now, you're giving up Harden and McLemore, obviously, but that's something that you've kind of accepted at this point. You're working with Daryl Morey's old Rockets GM, and this is a lot of assets that you're getting in exchange here for Houston. You're still pushing for Ben Simmons, but if Philly says that Ben Simmons is off the table and you're still motivated to move Harden, this could be a package you could take a look at. For the Sixers, any trade package that they can move that does not involve Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid to get James Harden, I think they're saying yes to it. And any other trade scenario that does involve Simmons or Embiid, they're going to take James Harden. They're going to become instant contenders, and they're going to be a scary, scary team in the Eastern Conference with still having some depth here left over. So my issue here for Houston is that Tobias Harris contract is so big, and this trade does serve the dual purpose of helping them right now because Harris is a real player. Him, Wall, Wood, Cousins, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, that's still a real NBA team and probably a playoff team in the West. And you get those future assets, so it helps you in both ways. The one takeaway here I would have, though, is just that Harris contract is just so tough. But it's definitely an interesting Philly trade where they don't give up sets. Next up now is a trade from K, in which James Harden goes to Chicago in exchange for Thaddeus Young, Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, and 3 future firsts. Chicago is a team that I've really been thinking about as a possible Harden destination because they have plenty of younger players that they can send in exchange for Harden if they so choose. And I think it's a really interesting team, as one that has a proud history, hasn't been in the playoffs in a while, and again has the assets to bring in Harden. So for Chicago, you're keeping Kobe White, you're keeping Wendell Carter Jr., you're keeping Otto Porter, you're keeping Patrick Williams, you're opening up space for Patrick Williams by trading away Lauri Markkanen, and you're creating a playoff group in the Eastern Conference. It's a group that maybe will struggle to defend at times, but you've got a lot of nice pieces, especially younger pieces around James Harden. And I think this works. I think this works in Chicago, and I think this is a deal that they would consider. Now, it's a ton of assets, depending on what you think of Lauri Markkanen. Obviously, Zach LaVine is a really good 2-guard. You've got the 3 future firsts as well, but it's a significant talent upgrade when you're comparing Zach LaVine to James Harden. And I think that it was one that Chicago would definitely consider. They'd have to make sure that they still have enough defense on the roster to be a really good team. Patrick Williams would certainly come in the equation there. But when you've got, Otto Porter can still guard a little bit, Patrick Williams, Wendell Carter Jr. protecting the rim, then Harden and Kobe White in the backcourt, that's a really interesting and intriguing Chicago team. For Houston, it just kind of depends on how they value LaVine or Markkanen. I can't tell if Lauri Markkanen has been broken by Jim Boylen or if he's just in a bit of a slump and we'll figure it out. If he's been broken, then he's not that much of an asset. And then LaVine obviously is a very good player, but we saw, what's happening with those Chicago teams over the last couple of years. He maybe might not drive winning necessarily. I'd like to see that combination of the backcourt, though, between him and John Wall. Probably makes them a playoff team, and they've got those 3 first-round picks as well. Really interesting deal here. I like this one a lot. Kate kind of read my mind on sending Harden to Chicago. Okay, second to last now, we have a trade from Felix in which James Harden goes to Toronto along with Ben McLemore in exchange for Norman Powell, Pascal Siakam, Terrence Davis, and 2 future firsts, one of which is unprotected in 2021. Now, this is another team, just like Chicago, that I've been thinking a lot about a possible James Harden trade team. I'd have to look at the numbers. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's relatively possible that this doesn't necessarily take the Raptors out of Giannis Antetokounmpo contention in free agency. Because you're moving the bigger salaries of Siakam and Powell, I'd have to look at the contracts, but they might be able to make this trade and then still have max cap space for Giannis in the summer of 2021, which would obviously completely remake their roster. It's just one thing I was thinking about here. So for Houston, if you really like Siakam, he's an awesome piece to have as a younger player. Powell can still develop as well, had a nice year last year. Terrence Davis made an all-rookie team, and you're getting those 2 future firsts as well. The value here, though, is all built around Siakam. If you don't really like the future of Siakam as an NBA player, then you don't like this deal for Houston. If you like Siakam, then you like the deal. For Toronto, you're looking at Harden, Lowry, the other guys they have on this roster, and then the possibilities in the summer of 2021 that I mentioned that make this a really intriguing trade and something that I would like to see happen. We know that Toronto has no issue making big moves. We saw what happened with the Kawhi trade. Again, I'd have to check and see, but if they can still bring in Giannis or a big free agent in 2021, this would be a trade I would take a look at if I was Toronto. And the last up now, we have a trade from Fred, and he says that the Rockets would receive Will Barton, Gary Harris, Michael Porter Jr., and 3 firsts in exchange for James Harden. Now, my first issue with this right off the bat is it all depends on what you think of Michael Porter Jr. as a trade asset. If you think he's a future All-NBA caliber guy, one of the best young trade assets in the entire league, then I think this trade kind of works. If you think that he's a future really good starter, maybe borderline all-star caliber guy, but not a future All-NBA guy, there's not enough value for Houston. Even with the future first, even with Gary Harris being a nice player, Will Barton being an okay player, potential trade asset down the road, there's not enough value here for Houston. It all depends on your valuation of Michael Porter Jr. as a future prospect. Now, on the other hand, Denver's getting James Harden. You've got Murray, Harden, and Jokic, and you kind of figure it out from there. The defense is going to be a struggle. The wing depth is going to be a struggle without Harris and Porter Jr. But if you think that Harden raises your ceiling enough, you should go ahead and make this move if you're Denver. So all this kind of depends on Michael Porter Jr. and what you think of him. But I do think that Denver is at least a relatively possible trade destination for Harden if Houston really likes MPJ. And of course, they're going to keep Jamal Murray. So you've got to kind of trade everything else. Bol Bol is still out there as a potential asset as well. I think Denver could make something work. Whether this is the specific trade or not, I'm not sure. And yeah, there you have it. That is going to be the end of the first of today's videos, the first part of the James Harden trade machine. And I thank you guys very much for watching. And I thank you guys so much for sending in all of these really, really interesting trades as well. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.